Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Two Legs. It's episode 131. Tom Hunyadi here, along with my co-host, Andy Nichols. Andy, what's going on?
Good afternoon, partner. How are you?
Doing excellent. I got another fun show today. We got a wonderful guest that I'm going to introduce here in a second. But, we're going to talk about the women in McCartney's lives. And we got just the perfect guest for this because she hosts a brand new show, one of the newest Beatles-related podcasts out there. There's been just so many of them the last 2 years, or even since the pandemic started. And we're talking none other than Natalia Cardenas. And not only does she host this wonderful show called She Loves You, where she talks about the women in the lives of the Beatles, right? And then she also has a Cynthia Lennon Instagram page. And Natalia, how are you? Thanks for being here.
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Cool.
Happy to have you. This is a first for us. It's our first female guest, and we're
with you actually.
I'm sorry, that's wrong. We had Kit too.
Yeah, the queen was here first, so she's the queen.
Yeah.
So
you're gonna have anyone, it might as well be her. Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's right. But nonetheless, it's great to have another woman here to get a woman's perspective on this particular topic. And again, you fit the bill perfectly. But before we get to that, I just got some stuff in the mail. As we know, a couple months ago, they announced the UK announced this big McCartney stamps campaign. So I did finally get some in the mail.
Are you going to even use them though? Really? Come on. Be honest.
Why would I do that?
I don't know.
Oh my
God. Why would I do that?
Awesome.
I ordered 5 sets. I got 4 in the mail, so I'm waiting on one more. And then once I saw how nice they were, I ordered a couple more.
Where's mine?
Yeah, I'll send you a postcard.
Thank you.
So, yeah, but I was really impressed with these. They're really nice. They're presented nice. They come in this nice little folder, to see through here so you can see it. But you got the McCartney 3 stamps.
Oh, I like that. That is nice.
And then you got the Ram stamps as well.
Oh, the Ram ones are so pretty. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Nice and glossy too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like I said, it's got that clear cover on it. So
right, to cover it.
Right. So that's what, so they're really cool. There's still, I think only one thing is no longer available. So there's all these, I mean, I think there's over 30 different variations that you can get.
Right.
And I think they're really cool. And like I said, I ordered a couple more.
Of course you did.
As you should. Yeah.
Yes. The McCartney collection, it never stops. So the wheels just keep on going. I did get the Tropic Island Hum yellow vinyl 45 in the mail as well. So that was cool. So I'll show that another time. But today, like I said, we're going to be talking about the women in McCartney's life. Let's just say all of them were, pretty much playboys. None of them were.
Hear me, women and wives.
Yeah, exactly.
They were the Beatles. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? And like I said earlier, it's going to be cool to hear a woman's perspective on that because they weren't perfect. They fooled around, and I mean they lived the rock star lives. So, but the first one we're going to start with is her name was Dorothy Roan. I think that's how you pronounce it. She goes by Dots, and she was 16 when they met at the Casbah, probably late '59. I want to say.
Yeah, around there, yeah.
But here's the thing: is it's kind of funny because her and Cynthia ended up being really close friends.
Yeah, they were best friends, I'd say, actually, a lot of the time.
Right. And back then, John and Paul, they were big Brigitte Bardot fans. So,
yes.
It's funny because, Linda became a blonde because of that for the most part, right? I think she dyed her hair.
Yeah, I mean, it was naturally blonde, but at the same time, I think that's what really drew, them to each other was her blondness, her natural blondness, I guess you could say. But yeah, I'd say something about that, yeah.
and so, and even though Paul wasn't as like controlling as John may have been, she was still had to, I think Paul made her quit smoking. She made her, he picked her wardrobe,
Yeah.
and and funny things like that. She couldn't dance with anybody during their performances.
Which is like nuts now, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it was, and I always say like he was like a man of his time, right? He
Right.
Which is not an excuse, but at the same time, it was what it was back then, and but unfortunately, she like catered to his every need in a lot of
Right.
ways, but I think, I mean, I also has to do, I think she was so young, right? They were both
Right.
so young, and you're like naive and you fall in love and all
Right.
that. So,
Yeah.
Plus, she didn't have the upbringing that Paul did too. I mean, I think she lived with an alcoholic father as well.
She did, yeah, which didn't help because you always like, I guess, seek sort of and I don't know if like you seek a man, but I think you seek sort of a person that's going to be able to say like, it's going to be okay. Like, I got
Right.
you. So, you got this young Paul McCartney who's, not bad looking, and he's telling you all the stuff like, all sweet. Of course you're going to be like, yeah, I'll do whatever he says. Sure. I mean, like, young Paul McCartney tells you to do something.
Right. But like most women in that time that got to in that circle, I mean, she first fell for John because of his more rugged, attitude and looks. But then again, he was seeing Cynthia. So, but I get, obviously that didn't stop John from seeing us.
Never stopped
No.
him, right? Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
No, I mean, it's like, it's kind of crazy because like they both, it never stopped them, right? Like, obviously,
Right.
being young, and I think it had to do with a lot the fact that they had to grow up pretty quick, I think,
Oh,
also,
exactly.
especially,
Yeah.
so I like, we know they had a wandering eye, we know that, but it's just one of those things where it's like, it happened.
Right. And then one of the places that they do grow quick is in Hamburg. I mean, they're there. What 3 years in a row, wasn't Andy? I think they performed in Hamburg. I think 60, 61, and then again 62.
Yeah, well, yeah, end of 60 or 61,
Right.
and a little bit of 62. Yeah.
Right. So, then they're off again. Now they're away from their women, and they're playing God knows how many hours a day, overnight. And obviously, like you said, Paul had admit that he was seeing other women at this time too.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but the cool thing was that both Dot and Cynthia came down together to visit.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. They and like that's the thing. I think like people are like, oh, they probably just wanted to get away from, having to have a girlfriend and all that. But no, John and Paul were really insistent. Like, they really wanted them to be there, and
Right.
because I think so many people forget that. They're like, oh, they were dating so and so, but they were just hooking up with everybody else. But no, they really wanted them there, and it shows, I think, by like how supportive Dot and Cynthia both were. So definitely, yeah.
Right.
And yeah.
Right. So to kind of like honor that commitment from Dot, I mean, Paul ends up buying her an engagement ring. I think this was in 62.
Yeah.
But this was before then that she gets pregnant, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I think they were engaged before then, but yeah, you're right. Then the pregnancy just
which really kind of forced the hand. Then I mean, what's Paul going to do? Is he going to run away,
right
or
now.
is he going to man up and do the right thing? Which thanks to the help of his father, kind of pushes them in the right direction.
Yeah. And it's like really interesting because I was like rereading, because like just to refresh my mind, I was like rereading, and Paul's dad was not that angry about it. He actually was kind of delighted at the fact he was going to be a grandpa, which is like so funny to me because I'm like, he's so young, but I guess.
Hey, it's Irish. It's Irish roots. It's Liverpool. It's
Exactly.
Families are big there, so it's not to be.
Totally.
So right, which is completely the opposite of that generation before, because then they were getting married later in life. The guys were like 40s and 50s by the time they were actually having kids.
Paul's father was like 40 when he was born.
Right.
So
Yeah. That's true.
So kind of interesting, because then you did see a lot of, teenagers, getting pregnant, come late 50s, early 60s.
Well,
So
baby boomers, really.
right.
Post-war babies, that whole generation.
Mhm.
You had to procreate, right? The men come back from the war, you got to make the babies, you got to provide the home and all of that. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, but then unfortunately, I think it was in the third month she miscarriages, and then all of a sudden it just seems like after that the relationship just kind of fizzles a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the pregnancy was the one thing to really like bind the whole like gonna get married thing. And I think Paul realized he didn't have to necessarily be responsible anymore. And I
Right.
think he realized, okay, maybe, it's done. I shouldn't have to, which is sad because like I genuinely think they did like each other a lot. And I'm like, oh no. No. Because I always do feel for her because she went through so much with him and in a really kind
Right.
of short amount of time too when you think about it. It wasn't very like long, but
Right.
Her story hasn't been as well publicized, though. I mean,
No.
she hasn't really. I mean, you would know better than us, but I
No,
don't think she's really ever gone on record, really. I mean, about
yeah,
anything.
Well, I mean, she is quoted in
uh,
a few books. She is quoted
Maybe.
in the Howard Soames book. So I mean, it's not like she hasn't been interviewed. She has been interviewed, and I reached out to our friend Ethan to see if he can hunt her down for her.
Right, but I mean, even still, it's just like she might be on quoted here and there, but she really hasn't been prolific about her period with Paul.
no. And I think she's I think that's totally how she is. She's just a very private
Yeah.
person. She
Right.
lives in Canada now, I think, and she has like her
Yes.
family and everything.
And
So definitely, but no, you're right. Like even if she has been quoted and all that, I really think it's only like us crazy Beatle fans that
We're
really
the only ones that know about these people.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
Like, not a lot of people do, but yeah.
Right. So I mean, Paul has gone on record saying that she was one of the nicest women that he's ever been involved with, just under Linda probably.
Aw.
But then reading, I was kind of surprised that when they went to Canada, the Beatles, when they toured, they they got to see each other again, and then in '76 for that tour, they ended up
Oh,
Right.
seeing
they
each
met.
other again.
They met back up then, really later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Which is
Oh,
such a funny kind of like fate is like not letting them not see each other apart type thing. And I
Right.
don't know, I think they were gonna have a baby, so it binds you, even if it didn't happen, like you still have that
Right.
bond, But yeah, they did, which is I love that story. But yeah.
Yeah. And it's been said that I think Dot has said this, that the songs Love of the Loved and P.S. I Love You were written about
Yeah.
her.
Yes. Which I totally believe. I totally
Yeah.
believe that, 100%.
They have that kind of kind of like puppy love charm to them.
Yeah,
those,
yeah.
Yeah,
those
that's a good
songs.
way to put it.
They
That's a
do.
good way to put it. So,
Songs, yeah.
so her and Cynthia ended up becoming, like you said, really good friends. I mean, she moved in with the Cynthia when she was pregnant with Julian.
Yeah,
think
a
this
little
was-
a little before then, and then kind of during they were
All right.
living together.
Was
Yeah,
before she moved into Mendips with Mimi.
yes. Oh God, yeah. Before that,
Oh,
yeah.
that poor lady.
Where I don't think I could have ever lived with Mimi.
Oh,
Paid me $1 million, trillions. I would be like, nope, no.
well, she was
It-
like,
it-
her. I mean, sidetrack, but she was really kind of very hypocritical. Like she ended up carrying on like, she have like that boarder that like lived with her for a while, right? And she
Yes.
it was just like right
Which is
there.
The irony of all ironies, right?
Yes.
She thought nobody knew, but it was so obvious. It was
Yeah.
like, come on.
She's breaking John's chops about all this stuff. And
Right.
that's what she's doing. You're coming across as
Writing man in there,
yes.
But,
But
yeah.
here's that's kind of what Paul's looking for. Someone he can kind of control a little bit.
yeah.
She's not she's not out to rule the world. She doesn't look like she's going to be a career woman, like the a woman that we're going to be talking about here soon. She looks like she'd be perfectly fine just being a housewife.
Make
You know what I
her
mean?
Yep.
Yeah, which is, kind of, when we talk about Jane, it's kind of like almost what he wants in a way.
Right, totally.
But in a way then too, it's also kind of good that they just left it and ended it, because here now this band is just going to is just getting ready to explode.
Totally.
You
For sure.
know,
Definitely.
so probably better off that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like obviously things happen for a reason, and I always say that. Like, I'm not really
Right.
sure I believe in like destiny and all that, but I just definitely think life plays out the way it's supposed to in a lot of certain ways.
Right.
So,
'Cause
yeah,
you
I think
gotta
so.
think, would Paul get bored of her, kind of like John got a little bit bored with Cynthia, maybe in a way, you know,
I mean,
they're
yeah, there's
traveling.
no way of telling, obviously,
Right.
'cause you never know.
Right.
Um, I definitely do think I think Paul, of the two, I think Paul was the one who took marriage maybe a little more seriously in a lot of
Right.
ways.
Hmm.
But then again, he was young, so like who really knows? I mean,
Right.
possibly that could have happened, but who knows? Who
I
really
just
knows?
Right.
couldn't see Paul settling down at that age.
No,
He was too
yeah,
creative. I mean, like that's why I think John was very jealous of his bachelorhood to go and be
yeah,
the guy to go explore London, the
yeah.
underground, the culture, where John is
Mhm.
just home in
I
his
mean, definitely.
mansion, so
Yeah,
that's
totally. I mean, yeah, like I think there was a sort of, I think because I think John said something to that, like, here I was married while Paul was getting all the girls and doing all this, and the
He was doing all
plan.
right himself.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, that's the irony of all ironies, right? It never
Right.
stopped you, so
Right.
like what's stopping you from just doing what you want? But yeah, I mean, it's just the hypocriticalness. But anyway.
Right. That's funny. Well, let's move on a little bit. So that relationship ends up. He does have a couple brief relationships before his next serious relationship, and it's pretty cool because both of them have relationships to other kind of famous people around that time. One
Definitely.
being Thelma Pickles, who again previously dated Lennon.
I was just saying
So
she was with John before that.
She was,
yeah.
yeah, she was like, she wasn't John's first serious girlfriend, but she was one of the few serious ones that he
So
dated.
do you
Yeah.
think they were dating before Lennon or before Cynthia or
Uh,
during?
it was after. It was after Lennon and her dated, and he was with Cynthia by that point. So
Okay.
then
Okay.
Paul took notice, quote quote, and they dated. Which I'm like, that's so funny.
Right.
You dating your friend's ex-girlfriend, but
And then she ended up marrying Roger McGough
yeah,
from Schofield. If I'm pronouncing
Scaffold,
that correct. Scaffold, thank you.
Scaffold.
And
yeah,
yes, we know that he ended up working with Paul's brother Mike.
yeah. Small world.
Yeah,
Small
very
world.
small world. Um, Another little relationship he had was with Iris Caldwell, sorry, who
Yes.
was a younger sister of Rory Storm in the what? Hurricanes, exactly. But this one was a little different because she wasn't gonna she seemed a little more fiery, wasn't gonna be controlled,
Yeah.
wasn't
She
going to
was
be, I'm sure she
tough.
wasn't gonna,
Yeah.
go
She
ahead.
was tough. She was really,
Yeah.
really tough.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you read, but she also did date George before that.
Right.
So
Yes. I
she
did
was,
see
I
that.
think I think she was George's first real serious like girlfriend. But it was like the sort of puppy, like 13-year-old, 14-year-old love where it's you hold
Right.
hands, but you don't actually do anything else,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really, really funny that they all like interchanged a lot.
Yeah, they were getting around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the next, okay, so the next serious relationship then would be Jane Asher, which we know. Let's talk about your show before we get into that. But you host this wonderful show called She Loves You, and it's all about the women in the lives of the Beatles. What, was this something that you were very interested in? Because obviously you've been doing the Cynthia Lennon Instagram page before you started. I would say, right? So
Yeah.
why take on this venture all by yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I've been doing the page for about almost like 4 years now. So it's been a
Hmm.
while. It's been a while. And I'm a big admirer of Cynthia Oxley. I think she's my favorite Beatles wife. She's just my favorite lady in Beatles history in general.
Okay.
But when it all came to the Beatles, like, I love them and they're my everything. They're the reason I'm
Mhm.
talking with you guys, like so. But I don't know what it was. I was always drawn to the women that were there with them because I'd always see pictures of them with their wives
Right.
or their girlfriends, whatever it was, or just any woman in particular had an effect on them,
Hmm.
and I always found that they were so interesting on their own when I finally began reading about them. And I was just amazed because they all have their own stories. They're so unique. They each have like their own personalities and were so wonderful. And I was like, oh, okay, I see why they fell in love with her. Oh, that makes sense. She's a trailblazer. She's amazing.
Right.
And I still always say that I think women's stories especially need to be told always because it's just so
Hmm.
important. It's so important. And especially in Beatles history, I always think that women need to be way more represented, and especially like these women that have had such an effect on these like incredible men that
Hmm.
created incredible music and history. And I just wanted to sort of bring their stories to light and help people understand why maybe these ladies had such an effect on them and why they're amazing. So I just really wanted to bring all that, to the forefront for once,
Right.
because it's always hard when you're reading like a Beatles book or a Beatle biography and it'll have like one mention, oh, and he happened to be married. But then anyway, let's go to this, like it's kind of upsetting because I'm like, no, there's like way more that you're not even talking about,
Right.
So I wanted to bring those
Right.
stories to life, essentially.
Talk about the research a little bit. I mean, obviously, like you said, there's not a lot of research or not a lot of information out there about some of these people. I mean, Mo never did a bio on herself, right? I mean, you have to rely on secondhand biographies or whatnot. I mean, talk about doing the research. I mean, has it been easy, finding information on these women?
So for some, it has been very easy because
Mm.
two of them have written memoirs. So it's
Right.
Yes,
extremely
yes.
easy.
Cynthia's got two. She's got two
Right.
books.
You got Patty.
You got
Patty.
Patty's book, which is fabulous, and everyone should read
Hmm.
that. Both of the books are wonderful. So obviously for Cynthia and Patty, it was so easy. And here's the thing, even if Patty didn't write a memoir, you just know so much about her because she's the muse,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, no, for two of them it's been easy. I would say for the other ladies, it's been a bit harder, but the great thing is the internet is just so wonderful. Like
Right.
people literally just spread information that you wouldn't
Hmm.
have known about. And with having the Cynthia Lennon page, actually, I've been able to connect with other people that run Beatle women pages, Beatle
Excellent.
Tumblrs, Beatle like on Google, and just so many people that I've been able to get information from. And
Mhm.
it's wonderful because there are other amazing pages. Like there's a Jane Asher page, there's a Maureen page, there's so many pages that I've been able to just hit people up and say, hey, do you happen to know like what happened in 1966 or whatever, so I've been able to research that way. But it's been years of me just finding stuff, like literally
Right.
just going out myself, looking it up and finding and yeah, and also just Beatle books from other people, like
Right.
who when they get mentioned or so forth. I read like May Pang's book. I happened to find a copy of it and it was amazing. So like information from that. So just all over the place. I've been
Right.
scattered, but
Yeah.
it's taken me a long time to gather all this. Like it has
Right.
not been easy, but
Cynthia's
yeah.
journey. I'm with you, Natalia. It's probably one of the more heartwarming ones to read in all of her stories. So I'm definitely with you on that because it was so, such a roller coaster for her life and then divorcing John and everything else like that. And I actually got to witness her in person with Julie in Liverpool in 2010, dedicate the Peace Monument and with a
Oh,
couple of hundred people. And she was so nice, like to see her really embrace the whole thing again after all that time was pretty special to see. And I remember she got on the stage and she said, "Look at all the Scousers that turned out for this wonderful ceremony." It was just so nice to see her up there with Julian. And she didn't have to do that, you know, her ex-husband, but she's, you know, she was doing the right thing, and it was really nice to see. So I'm totally with you on that.
She's an incredible lady, and you know, she has a little bit of a funniness to her, which I don't think people really realize. And I think that's why, like, I love her so much. And you're so lucky to have been able to see that, because I've never gotten to meet her, and unfortunately she passed away in 2000.
Yeah, she walked right past me on the event, but I didn't say hi or anything, but I saw her.
Right. You're just like, oh my gosh, it's her. Yeah.
And it was incredible. And it's like, and of course you know this because you've done your research. It's like, and you know, she was really considered a bit posh. She was from the other side of the water. You know, that's why her family did not like John. Her mother couldn't stand John Lennon.
No. But I will say though, the irony of all of it is John was, you know, in doing my research, and I actually got to go to Liverpool in 2019. I got to go, and I got to see John's house. But the irony of all ironies is that John was probably way richer than Cynthia was, you know. So it's so funny that he would just call her posh all the time, when she was in a way, but not really. I mean, not compared to his house. So it's hilarious.
Yeah. But that whole working class hero bit, right? The whole
right. I always go, were you though? Were you not working?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But no, yeah. You are right though. Her mom just hated John, and it's just the funniest thing whenever I read her book again. Because
I remember there was that one. I think there was a little story about how when they were getting divorced or whatever, she came back to get all the belongings out of the house or something, and John left a note and said, "Beat you to it, Lil," or something like that.
Yeah. Which is just so petty, but
right,
so,
because
like,
when her mother found out that he was with Yoko, her mother came flying down, and of course John beat her to it and just left a note, "Beat you to it, Lil." Like, typical, typical.
I wanted to like fuck him in the face to just be like, ah, you know, yeah. Oh man, I swear.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of jealous in a way, you know, of you and, you know, the younger crowd, Ethan, and even Hudson, who does the I Know show. Because, you know, when I'm discovering the Beatles, when I'm 15, it's 87, 88, and everybody's listening to the hair metal bands, you know, Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, Janet Jackson. I mean, all that. Michael Jackson's still big, you know, so I didn't get that, you know, camaraderie, or I didn't get to actually, you know, talk to people. One, because as we all know, and I hate this statement, because we all know there was no internet back then, but, you know,
Right.
It is what it is. But, you know, so I had to take this journey by myself, and it's just so cool seeing that, you know, people like you and Ethan and others, you know, you get to, you know, find people like us, or, you know, other pages, like you said, you know, so you got other people out there to help you with this, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think that's, like I said, I think that's the best part about being in this community, right? Like, we're all helping each other out whenever we need information, you know, and that's the best. And like you said, I think it helps that I'm young, but you know, like I've been able to really like get all this info because of the internet, and I'm sort of thankful for it. I mean, I think on the one hand, the internet's done a lot that's like, oh God, you know, like it's been a lot.
But to your credit, you're tackling, all the podcasts are great, right? Everybody's like so supportive, and we all do good things, but yours is unique because it tackles a subject that nobody else has really touched upon. So it's a real welcome addition. So, you know, kudos to you.
That means the world. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Did you feel, because in the back of my mind, when me and my cousin, Andy wasn't part of the show then, unfortunately, but my cousin and I we're starting this show, and in the back of my mind, I'm going, we need to hurry up and get this out, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking there's others out there that are just getting ready to put this out.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like we rushed it when we should have taken a little bit more time. But then, however, when we put out our first episode, little did I know that there was also 3 other, you know, McCartney podcasts by then, and I didn't know. You know.
Yeah. No, it's actually really funny you say that, because thankfully I was one of the first to
Right.
do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But in recent months, there have been more podcasts coming out, and it's really funny because I'm like, oh, that's great. I kind of took the high road, and I was like, we should collaborate sometime, and I have not gotten a message back, but I'm not
Oh.
gonna. I'm not gonna
Oh.
say anything, because I don't really want to go there, but at the same time, I am thankful that I know I started it first.
Yeah, you just keep
Right.
doing you. You just keep
Yeah,
doing
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Oh.
And whatever, and like if the person in question decides to collaborate one day, it'd be great because we could do like a whole big, like episode or whatever.
Right.
But no, yeah, I think it does mean a lot because I like to consider myself the first, even though it doesn't really matter, because we're all a community. It's great. But yeah, it's
Yeah. I know you want to stay humble,
yeah, be humble, yeah.
Right. So first show was obviously Cynthia Lennon, right? Your
Yeah,
first
that
your
was,
first episode.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
first was sort of introducing me and like why I decided to do this, and then I think my second episode was
Okay.
the first girl, Cynthia. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Gotcha. And then second was Jane, correct?
Second
Or
was Jane. Yeah.
Jane. So let's
Going in order,
let's-
yeah.
let's jump into Jane because
Okay.
she's she wants to be successful just like Paul. I mean, she's got goals. She wants to be every bit as popular, I'm sure, as as Paul's. She's
She's a very
profession minded,
dedicated actress. Yeah. She's a very dedicated young actress from the time
Right.
she's 5 years old. She had, at 5 years old, she had her own career, which is
Right.
like, wow, as a child to be able to do that is wow. Yeah.
Right. So, but they actually met beforehand. They were doing a show at the Royal Albert Hall, and she's there, and I think she's actually doing an interview with them for BBC.
Yes, they were doing sort of a teen section, right? Like, what are the teens listening to today? What's in for the kids? I'm 22 and I'm acting as though I'm like 50, but what's in it for the kids? But yeah, you're right. They were doing that, and she was sort of the chosen guest as to what is popular, what isn't, and they were like, there's going to be this big variety show, and it's going to be the Beatles and so forth, and come watch and review. So it was one of those. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So it's funny because then it just seems like then in no time Paul's actually living at their home.
Oh yeah, no, I mean that night, that night was funny because all the Beatles, I don't know if you know, but they had seen her before because she'd been on Jukebox, which was a big show in England, which was kind of like listening to the day. Right, yeah, you know that. So they had all seen her before, right? But the thing is they all thought she was blonde. And then it wasn't until they met her, and I think John was like, "We thought you were a blonde. This is crazy. You're a redhead." Yeah, which is their dream, right? A blonde girl. But they all really liked her. But it was Paul who ended up becoming the gentleman of the night because John said an unruly comment that I should not even say. But yeah, well. Yeah, but Paul was the gentleman that night, and they all were kind of like winking and were like, "Ooh, he's gonna get it with Jane Asher." But he was such a gentleman, and they ended up just talking about like their favorite foods and like what kind of music they liked, and it was like really wonderful. And Paul realized, oh, this is the girl for me. This is the girl that I really want to be with. So yeah, but and you're right.
Paul's almost 20, and then here's Jane, what, 2 or 3 years younger.
Yeah, she was 17 when they met. 17. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So she was young. She was a kid, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't know. I mean,
and at that age, I mean, to drop Tom, it doesn't seem like a big gap, but at that age, 2 or 3 years seems like a lifetime. In terms of like, and so you look at it now, and it's like not a big deal, but when you're that young, 2 years is a big So, she's 17, Paul's 20. That's a big gap when you're that young.
Right.
Right. I mean, I couldn't even have imagined, like at 17, me going out with a 20-year-old. Just in not even. I mean, it's the age difference, but even like the way we think is so different. You know, a 20-year-old
Right.
think way differently to a 17-year-old. But at that time, women just dated older men, and it was normal. You know, at that
Yeah.
time, way
Mhm.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've noticed that doing research that at that point in time, I think even here in the States, that it was just the common thing for younger women to date older men. Maybe security. I don't.
Yeah. I
know.
mean, there's a lot of reasons why it could happen.
Yeah.
Security, you find the men more like mature. Like
Even
there's just reasons.
John's dad ended up marrying a much younger woman too.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story, but yeah, yeah,
Oh.
sure. That's a whole other can of worms. But
Oh God, yeah.
yeah, no,
So anyway,
Do you credit the Eastmans, Paul being with the Eastmans, for his kind of like introduction to the whole London culture thing? I think the Ashers had a lot to do with that. Do you agree?
yeah, yeah, I would say so because, as you mentioned, Paul ended up going to live with the Ashers for
mhm,
about like two
3 years,
years.
I think,
Yeah,
right?
2 3
2 or 3
years, which
years.
is a
Yeah.
long time. And yes, the Ashers were a very like influential family.
Mhm.
Obviously, Peter, her brother, and Jane, they started acting both, and then Peter became a musician. He,
Right.
part of Peter and Gordon. But um Mr. Asher and Mrs. Asher, they were very sophisticated Londoners. She was a music teacher at I don't remember what the school's called, but it's a very famous music school. And her father was a psychiatrist, and they were very knowledgeable on so many, like on world culture and languages, and it was such a different world for Paul because he'd never been with a family in general. One, because his mother died, so he didn't have a real big family, but also he had just never been with people that knew so much about like the world and culture
Right.
and so
So
forth. So yeah,
sophisticated, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely sophisticated. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that the whole living arrangement kind of has interested me over the years.
Mhm.
That he's living there and he's dating a much younger, you know, girl with the mom and dad there, obviously, and Peter's still living there as well. So I mean, they're not sharing the same room. I mean, he's living up in the
No,
attic.
and let's be honest too. He was not living there, every day. The man was. They were on tour and
Yeah,
working. He wasn't.
all the time.
He was
Yeah.
never really. He was living there, but I mean, not
Right.
like you and
Yeah,
I would. No.
Right.
exactly.
Right. I mean,
Exactly.
he's there. I mean, obviously, he wrote a handful of songs there that
He
have gone
wrote,
on to be
yeah.
worldwide successful songs. But it just has always kind of fascinated me about how he's there and not really in the same room with her, but it's just kind of interesting in a way. But
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also interesting because they didn't have a big commitment. They weren't married.
right,
They weren't, they were just dating. But I think that goes to show how much Paul really loved the Ashers in a way. Like he
hmm
was able to be so comfortable with them and say, "Yeah, I'm gonna live with them." Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Because
right,
I think any 20-year-old would be freaked out of their mind to be living with their girlfriend's parents.
parents, right,
Really
That
boring.
and it probably the maternal instinct of Jane's mother to like want to like because knowing that Paul lost his
Right.
mom and he's down here in the South all by himself and he needs
Totally.
somebody
hmm
to look after him and
Totally. And I think that's, like Paul was not gonna say no to that, obviously.
no.
right.
If I can get a
So
home and a cooked
right,
meal and, my girlfriend's living there, why not? I can see her every
right,
day now.
And again, with John being married and already having a child, it was just easy for him to go, okay, well, my girlfriend's here and they're going to look after me and they're a pretty nice family. I'll stay here.
Right,
right,
definitely. And I think he also really liked their music room because, as I said,
mm,
her mom was a music teacher. So he already had
ah,
a room at his dispense to essentially write music all day and just, mess around with instruments he didn't know how to play, So
right,
it was a perfect situation, essentially, in a
right.
lot of ways. Yeah.
So we know that Jane's ambitious herself,
Mhm.
and wanting in her acting field. Annie, you mentioned, Paul's not always there because he's touring the world as well. But then I'm sure when he gets back, he wants to spend time with his girlfriend. But now she's working as well, doing what theater and films as well, right, Natalia?
Yeah, she pretty much worked a lot of the time because that's her job, that's her profession. She was doing a lot of theater, a lot of TV appearances,
Mm.
movies, and whatnot. So yeah, she was working all the time, and she had her own life essentially beyond
Right.
Paul, which is great. But
Right.
yeah,
So she's got her own career. She's making her money. And, Paul's obviously making a living too, not being able to probably control her as much as he was able to control past girlfriends.
yes, that
Mm.
was a big sort of shock to him, was that, oh,
Right.
it's great that she's an act. He probably thought it's great that she's an actress and she's so cool and worldly. But then he
Right.
realized, oh wait, she's an actress. She has a life beyond me. It's not just me.
Right.
Right.
Fiercely independent,
Oh
Right.
yes. That's the word I always use when it comes to her. She was not gonna ever give up anything for Paul McCartney. Not her
No.
career, not her life, nothing. So
Right. Good point. Some of those, I mean, I always, I tend to think that Jane was a better muse for Paul lyrically as opposed to Linda, because I mean everything was always lovey-dovey with Linda, which we'll talk later
this is a good point. I know where you're going with this.
about this, but lyrically, I mean the on again off again, or the fiery relationship, however you want to call it, with Jane, I mean I think provided some of Paul's best lyrics to songs.
I would not disagree with that at all. I think, and that's why I think Jane is probably one of, besides Linda, obviously, she
Right.
is the most important person in Paul McCartney's life. One of the
Mm.
few, because she really inspired his greatest songs,
Yes.
his greatest lyrics. And I think, like
Mm.
you said, everything was so lovey-dovey with Linda, which is wonderful because, they loved each other and all that. But I think Jane challenged him in the way to look at love in a different way, and
Yeah,
that's
good point.
why I love it so much. Yeah.
Love has a
Right.
nasty habit of disappearing overnight.
Overnight,
Right.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, even in like "You Won't See Me," right? There's some like great lyrics going on there, and I'm just like that's amazing.
That which
I wouldn't mind if I knew. Yeah, I wouldn't mind if I knew what I was missing. It's one of my favorite lines.
And Tom, you bring up a good point. There's that kind of caustic kind of back and forth with Paul and Jane's relationship in those lyrics that just is not present in the lyrics that he's with Linda. Not that they're bad lyrics, it's just different.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
It's just different.
But
And that is interesting.
Yeah, and it's great because I always like to say you see the journey of a guy loving one woman and then loving another, right? Like you've got this young love that's so worldly and amazing, but then and it has heartbreak and a lot of like fighting and a lot of like
Right, like
anger.
not writing a song like For No One with Linda. Not
Because
happening.
the journey,
Exactly.
right? That journey, you start off with a song like "And I Love Her," and then you're working through "You Won't See Me," "I'm Looking Through You," and then and then "For No One." It's just so like finished.
And like keep in mind this all happened within the span of like a couple years only.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Crazy. Yeah.
Right. And they're still officially together while all these great songs are he's writing all these great songs while they're still officially together.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there was periods where I mean, specifically like in the late 60s, obviously, when it was kind of getting to the point where it just wasn't going to work out, where they would separate, but Paul just was like, I couldn't live without her and I had to be with her, so it was one of those things. And I think that's why it brought out, like you said, his best lyrics, I'd say.
Right.
Yeah,
Natalia, was there a period there in their relationship where where you think they were just together on paper, but not really, like the last year, like 68, 67?
I actually am one of the few people that I truly, truly do think up until the last minute, Paul was in it for good. I truly do believe that. I would say that it got bad, not necessarily on Paul's side, because I think he still thought everything's good. Even if I have, women and this and whatnot, we're still going to get married. It has to happen. I can't. But I don't actually think on Jane's side, it was definitely coming back from India, knowing that, he was still going to be the man he was. And So for me, I would say that was for her, on her side, it was definitely just on paper. But on his,
Mhm.
I truly still believe that he thought, like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to get married, because, they did get engaged. So
Right.
there
And I
was
was
that.
going to bring that up in a second here
Yeah.
because 67 is a big year,
Yes.
for McCartney, not only musically, but also relationship wise, because in 67, we know, and specifically in May of 67, that's when he first meets Linda,
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Bag and Nails, and, he calls out to her, hey, let's talk. And then obviously a few days later, they're talking for the Sergeant Pepper, press release. So they're getting to know each other then there too. And then flash forward on December 25th, he proposes to Jane.
Right. Which is like crazy, right? Like I
Right.
say, life is happening the way it's supposed to,
Right.
it's one of those things where it just had to happen, like Linda had to come in and change everything. And yeah, no, Paul was definitely thinking about her a lot, but I don't actually think he was as serious with Linda as a lot of people like to believe at that point. I think he was still
Mm.
very much okay with being the
Right.
playboy, having Jane with him,
Right.
because they did go on a date, quote unquote, at the after the Bag and Nails meeting and all that, but I don't actually think he was as serious yet. I don't think it was
Mm.
until Jane really left him that he realized, oh, okay,
Right.
I have to get my act together, if I'm ever gonna have a family that I want, because he did
Right.
want a family.
Family.
But
I've
yeah,
always
yeah,
I've always been amazed on how tight-lipped Jane has been over all these years
yeah.
about their relationship.
Oh, definitely. She's been the most like, hold my head up high. I'm a very
Right.
private person. I don't need to air my dirty laundry to anybody, because what's that going to do?
Right.
I am too, and I think that's why I really admire her as well. I'd actually say she's my sort of second favorite Beatle girl overall, just because how classy she is,
Right.
and truth be honest, she doesn't have to do, she doesn't have to say it, like we know what
Right.
happened, and like she says, she's been married now for over like 30 something years, like,
Mhm.
why go there again?
Right.
but
Exactly.
but I do know the curiosity, like, believe me, if she would come out with a book, I'm pretty
Oh
sure
yeah.
it would be a bestseller, and I know that we would all
Instantly.
freak out, the day it comes out. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah. You just gotta kind of like have a feeling, because a lot of the women, I mean, there's only been really one that has really been very vocal about their relationship, with Paul, and we'll get to that probably in part two of
Part
this.
two. Ooh.
Right. Right.
But other than that, I mean, a lot, Jane, I mean, and others, even going back to Dot, I mean, they've been really respectful to keeping their relationship mostly private.
Yeah, yeah. And I applaud them for that, because on the one hand, whose business is it anyway, right?
Right.
What happened
Right.
years ago. But yeah, I mean, she's such a classy lady, both of them are,
Right.
and I totally understand. I totally
Yeah.
understand why they wouldn't.
But a Jane book would be pretty fascinating.
And
A
she,
Jane book would be
oh,
amazing.
the,
Could you imagine?
but not necessarily just because of the McCartney Jane relationship, but because of everything she got to see. She got to see the band blow up. She got to see all that, success. I mean, and then the time they traveled to see the Maharishi. I mean, so many different adventures that she got
Yeah.
to experience with
And
Paul.
even just her acting career, right? Being in the 60s,
Right.
being an actress, what that meant,
Right.
She knew a lot of really interesting people, and one of the
Yes.
reasons Paul was so eclectic and a lot of the things he did at that time was because of her.
because of her.
Good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, and her brother.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and her brother, being Peter and Gordon, like they were the kind of besides, I guess, George and Patty, Jane and Paul were the it couple of the 60s in London. They were the couple. So, I mean, just a Jane book about that would be amazing. Just,
Right.
who she knew in the 60s, Yeah.
And
Yeah,
she
go
has
ahead.
been, I guess, I don't know if she's still currently, like, I know she did some TV there for a while in the UK. She was like a presenter on the BBC or some on a show or something. I don't know how prolific her career she still is, but I know that she did a lot of TV work there in England.
Yeah. I think like about 2 years ago, she was doing some stage work. I can't remember what the show was or anything, but it was like on the West End, and yeah, she's still going.
Wow.
Like she's still, and her new sort of career that she has is her baking, because she's a baker,
Yeah.
so she's a lot of like Jane Asher baking products and whatnot. So yeah, she's a great cook, but still has her acting career going.
She's got to compete with the Linda McCartney recipe stuff now.
Right.
Right.
But then I think, wow, Paul really liked women that knew how to cook. There you go.
Yeah.
Similarity,
So,
right?
yeah. So Paul then, I think in 65 he gets the house on Cavendish Avenue. He never really officially moves in, right? Do we know?
Yeah, but him and I think him and Jane technically moved in together.
Okay.
I think they did, and then they started living there. But again, they're away so much that it's like they're not living together. You know what I mean?
Right.
All engagements and concerts and tours and
Shows,
Well,
and she's
yeah.
traveling. Right.
Yeah, she's doing traveling shows as well, because I think some of their shows would go to different cities and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But then that's I also find it interesting that she was also the one that kind of put the bug in Paul's ear to get the home in Hyde Park.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Which is kind of interesting as well. Not that she gets to spend much time there, as we know, Paul and Linda ended up doing.
Are you talking about the house in Scotland?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think it was, for privacy, she said,
Right.
like, because I think she figured he was going to propose eventually around that time, and he did. So she's
Right.
like, I want a place for us to be able to just be alone, because no one's going to leave us alone if we stay in London. So I definitely think, yeah, it is kind of fascinating that she was the one to say, let's get a farmhouse, because of all the
Right.
people, I don't think Jane Asher would have lived in a farmhouse, but there
Yeah.
you go, right?
Interesting.
City girl. Yeah. Big time city girl. So, all this is going on. Obviously, we learn that Paul is seeing other women during this time too, especially later on. And a couple that I've done some research on was her name is Maggie McGovern. She was this started in 66, and again, she's much younger. She's 20 at the time. She's an actress and model as well. Really interesting. She was hired as a nanny for Marianne Faithfull and John Dunbar. Which was pretty interesting.
See what I mean? All these people just knew each other. It was nannies, friends, and whatnot. Yeah. So they met through that, because John Dunbar, he owned the Indica Gallery, I believe, which is a very significant, as we know, in Beatles history. But he owned that. So Jane, I believe, was a big, like follower of the Indica Gallery. So they all knew each other through that, and Paul knew John Dunbar, obviously, and all that.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So I mean, obviously now they're meeting at the Dunbar's place, making sure, keeping it a secret, no one else is there.
Just like, you're a nanny. What are you doing? Like you have to take care of the kid. Like it's not you. But
so obviously the kids are getting put to bed.
Yeah.
Paul's coming over secretly.
Started an affair and whatnot.
Right. However, it does tend to get out a little bit, because then Paul's he's getting comfortable with her, because Paul does invite her to get on that Magical Mystery Tour bus during filming of Magical Mystery Tour. She does get to see a rough cut. She does hang out to see that, and it's kind of funny because they go out and they travel together in cars, whatnot, but Paul kind of has the car stop early to drop her off at a different location, so then he can get to his location by himself. You know what I mean? So it's all hush hush.
It just gets complicated at that point. Like, what is you know, yeah, but yeah, they're having a big affair, but yet nobody knows about it, but everybody knows about it.
Could
It's
you
Right.
could you imagine if if the Beatles were like living and this was all going on now with social media, there everything would get exposed and be
oh,
out there. They'll forget about all these things that people are taking to their graves.
Oh,
We would all know about it.
oh
oh,
yeah,
exactly.
that's
Social
why they
media
would
would,
not have worked in the
yeah,
modern age. Not at all.
No way.
good point, Annie. This would, I mean, all of this stuff would be, I mean, it would, everybody would
Forget
know.
about
There
it.
would be no secrets. Absolutely no secrets.
None. That's why I mean these people that witness this stuff and know about stuff like the Neil Aspinalls and the Jane, like
Right.
they're taking this stuff to their grave.
Right.
Right.
I mean, only a few people know about this relationship. I mean, obviously, John, Brian know, and I think Mike, his brother, ends up knowing because from time to time she's staying at the house on Cavendish. So it's. But then also the thing was I found pretty fascinating is they both shared an interest in the transcendental meditation, which she was studying before Paul, went to the Maharishi. So that
Right.
was kind of interesting as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always interesting reading about them just because they lasted like 3 years, which is not a short time, like
No,
I mean, to have an affair for that long, I mean, is that even
right.
fair at that point? It's just a relationship. But yeah, no, it's interesting. She was very interested in meditation, and that was a big like drawing point to each other, and they had a lot of similarities, but at the
Hmm.
same time, and actually, I think I remember reading. She said her mom knew about what was going on because she told her
Uh,
mom, like, I'm having a
right,
relationship with Paul McCartney, but just like it's secret, no one should know.
right.
But yeah, I think her mom, John, and Brian were the only two that knew about it.
Yeah.
It's funny because like you said, it is on again, off again for like 3 years, and it just seems like Paul, is always kind of like in a way, going back and reaching out to her because she is quiet, she is respectful for and
Yeah,
keeping the relationship hush hush, which I'm sure he likes, and there are there is literature on how they would just sit and talk together, and have conversations,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, she had to have been a very interesting person, right?
Right,
Obviously, for him to have had such an interest and
right.
want to be with her. But yeah, no, they and I think they like wanted a lot of the same things, which was another thing.
Hmm.
Um, but it was an affair because
Right,
at the end of the day, he still was with Jane, right? There's
right.
that
I was
problem.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, I was also reading that he even asked her, like, what do you think about getting married?
Yeah,
And
and
she's
I was
just
gonna
like,
get to
well,
that.
let's see what happens. Yeah,
Yeah, no, he even said like, do you want to get married one
right,
day maybe? But in her mind, she's thinking I'm like 21,
right.
but she said, oh, maybe one day,
Hmm.
But to him, I think that meant, oh, okay, she's not ready. She doesn't want it.
Right,
She's not gonna
right.
want to marry me. But then I think I was reading an interview she did, and she was like, I should have said yes in that moment. I know I should have said yes, and it was the biggest mistake of my life. But
Right.
just one of those things where things happen for a reason, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So
yeah,
the other interesting relationship that happens while Jane is still technically in the picture is the relationship with Francine Schwartz, who
Hmm.
is at the time is yeah 24 years old.
Kaboom.
yeah, boom, exactly.
Yeah,
Just
24-year-old New Yorker who makes her way to the Apple offices in Wingmore Street. She wants to propose some kind of script,
yeah,
which she thinks that Paul would be perfect in. She makes her way in her offices. Paul does notice her. Paul does take her to a side room for some kind of
They
meeting or
all
what.
go to Paul first to pitch ideas, including Yoko. They all
right,
go to Paul first,
exactly.
including Yoko.
I think
Right.
he's the easiest one to get through first.
Most approachable probably at that point in time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I feel like if you're gonna like approach someone with an idea, go to Ringo. I feel like he's down for anything. Why would you go to
Yes.
right?
Right.
That's funny. So they have this conversation. She never pitches the idea. She ends up getting a job working at the Derek Taylor's press office, and right away again, now here's, a relationship starts. Mhm.
Another one.
Another.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like at that point he just couldn't resist. Just go
Mhm.
for it all. If you're gonna just, go
Right.
for it all. Yeah.
Right. So she does get to witness a lot of White Album sessions. She's there, quite often. The one interesting thing, because she is staying with Paul quite a bit at the Cavendish house,
Mhm.
is when John and Yoko move in, she is there the day that John finds the postcard. You and your Jap tart think you're hot shit.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh
Yeah.
yes.
So she has been quoted saying that she could see the hurt in John's eyes after reading that that letter that Paul's always said was just a joke.
And how often do you what do you chalk up to the fact that maybe Paul was with Francie Schwartz, just throwing caution to the wind because the John and Yoko thing was now happening, and he's like, you know what, I don't really care. I'm just going to do this with her, and because my relationship with my buddy is
Right.
like going down the tank,
Yeah.
and I don't really care.
I
See,
think at that point it was just such a mess, everything happening all at the same time that
Right.
like Paul just went nuts and was like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna go with Francie, I'm gonna say
Right.
this about whatever, so
Right.
I think they were both just going through such a hard time, and it was easier to act out instead of actually say what was bothering them, right? But
Yeah.
yeah.
I always thought Francie was more of a rebound from Jane than anything, but then you read that he still feels for Jane and still hasn't really officially ended the relationship, which I don't think has ever really officially ended. I don't think anybody really actually said this is over.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know Jane found them in bed together,
Right.
and that was the end of it all. She immediately, and what's so classy about her, right? Because she's such a classy lady.
Right.
She found them. She didn't say a word. She just darted out, and then her mom gets her things and is like, "Goodbye. You're never seeing her again. See you later." But I think she even said it, like, I didn't technically end it, but it's over. Like,
Right.
he knows that it's
Right.
never going to happen again.
Which is so weird when you think about like Paul's relationship with Peter Asher, which continues past Jane, and
Continues.
Peter even to this day still talks fondly about Paul. So it's like,
he wrote a whole book about the Beatles that came out pretty recently. Like it is just. But I will say, I think it has more to do with the whole we're both music colleagues and we both work in the same world, so
Right.
we're obviously going to run into each other, and we better make the most of it.
Yeah.
But I do think Peter did have a fondness for Paul. I think he always liked Paul, and maybe not for his sister, but I think he liked Paul just as a person.
right.
Yeah.
And all this time, again, still, we're reading that he's still in the back of his mind is, has Linda. So I mean, he goes to New York for the Apple thing. They're in California for the Tonight Show, and they meet up, and then the next day, he's calling her, hey, come to London, and so it all is still going back to, in a way, going back to Linda, all while he's still in this, he's still in kind of this. I would say I don't know if you could say he was still in love with Jane, but he still had probably feelings for her.
I mean, he was in a mourning period for
Yeah.
sure. I was reading, I can't remember whose book it was because I've read so many Beatle books in my life, but it was someone who worked with them. I remember that, and there was a quote where he was saying that Paul, there would be nights where Paul, this is like after they, broke up, but there would be nights where Paul would just be drinking like a whole bottle and would say, like, I messed up my life. She was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm a horrible person. Like, what am I going to do now? He was really depressed, because that's a 5-year relationship. That's not something that goes away, even if there was problems and, like affairs and all that. It's tough. Yeah, he was.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because that right there just shows that he has a conscience, and he can admit that he screws up. Whereas, like, you know, maybe you don't have that same feeling with John, where he starts this big relationship with Yoko. He doesn't really feel like he messed up his life.
Yeah,
You know,
because he felt he needed to broadcast to the world, look at the
Right.
better choice I made and look at how
Right.
happy I am. But you know, reading Cynthia's book, you know that's probably not true in a lot of ways.
Mm,
But yeah,
right.
no, at least like you say, Paul knew what he did and he knew how bad he messed up, and you know, he figured I'm never gonna find someone as good as Jade, you know. So he had a conscience, right? Like he's actually, not that John isn't a good human being, but Paul at least knew how he messed up, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So we get the, we're in 68 right now. Linda's going to come to London. She's going to get dropped off at Paul's home, wait for him to come back from, I think it was a
White
Album.
White Album sessions. Yeah.
But we're going to talk about that on part 2.
Whoa,
Yeah.
man. All right, yeah, the big love story. I love
Yeah,
it.
because
Enter, exit Jane. Welcome
Exit.
Linda.
Yeah,
welcome, Linda, because this could be a 3-hour conversation. You know what I mean?
this could be like
Especially,
a 2-month conversation, I swear.
yeah, exactly,
Good.
exactly. But Natalia, before we go, I want you to talk a little bit more about your show. Tell us about where we can find it. You know, what's up with it, because you did take a little bit of a break from the show, right?
Yeah, I took a little bit of a mental health break just because I had family actually coming over also. So it was hard to sort of record without, you know, needing to be with the family, because it was my grandparents. So obviously they're a bit older and it was
Yes.
tough. So I needed to do that. And also just for my own sanity, because I felt like I was trying to do too much at once.
Oh, I can hear you there. I hear you there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But no, it is coming back. And I'm hopefully going to actually record my Patty episode tomorrow, which I'm really, really excited about.
Excellent.
That actually might be my longest episode, just because there is so much to talk about with that.
Right.
It's just, there's just so much. But yeah, no, for now, you can find me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But I just got Anchor, so I'm hoping I can put it to more like, you know, outlets and all that. So I hope I can have way more ways for people to listen if they don't have Apple or Spotify or anything like that. Right. And I'm actually thinking of maybe putting a lot of the episodes on YouTube, just so people are able to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a great idea. Just more exposure, really.
Definitely,
you know?
definitely.
And it's easier too. You click in YouTube, and there it is. It's right there. I mean, a lot of times people got to go on Google. You got to click the name of the podcast, and where is it? You know.
Yeah. So
but,
so most likely that's sort of new things coming. You know, that's gonna be the next step. But yeah, for now though, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and yeah, it's, you know, we'll see how it goes. But I am coming back, and I'm recording hopefully tomorrow. So
awesome, that's great. Well, we look forward to that. And then the Cynthia Lennon Instagram page, and that's just what, Cynthia Lennon on Instagram?
Yeah, Cynthia Lennon Daily on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to update as much as I can. I do it every 2 days, I'd say. Not every day, just because I used to post every day, but it's gone to the point where I'm like, I can't keep looking for quotes every single day. This is getting a lot, you know. But yeah, no, you can follow me on there. I'm pretty active on that page, so, you know, if anyone wants to shoot me a message or anything, I'm there. But yeah, I try to just kind of update it with facts and like daily quotes and all that. Mainly because there's just so much on Cynthia that you've read, but there's so much more that we don't know that's not in her book. But yeah, so I try to update it usually, and it's been like almost 5 years now, and it's great.
Wow. Yeah. Great commitment right there.
That's great commitment.
Yeah, I've gone to speak to so many like people that knew Cynthia and John, and it's been like amazing, because they're
great.
Just, like,
now, let me ask you that. Can you see yourself doing that on your show? You know, interviewing people that knew?
Yeah, actually, I'm hoping, you know, after talking with Ethan, he was like, you know, I have a lot of people that I know, and I can just let you know. I'm hoping to bring in more people. Like, I'd love to have you guys on just to talk about like your favorite Beatle girl and like why you like them and all that.
Thank you.
yeah, so that'd be fun. I'm hoping to have Ethan on the show. I'm actually hoping to get an interview with Jude Kessler maybe one.
Oh, Jude's
Oh,
wonderful.
Just
Jude is
that,
wonderful.
just because
Yeah.
I love her books on John. Like I'm
Right.
reading like the second one right now, and it's just fabulous. And everything she's done for Cynthia, and even like May
Right.
Pang, because I know she's a big May Pang person, and I love that because I'm a very big May Pang person. But
Right.
yeah, so I'm hoping to get her perspective on Cynthia and all the women in John's life, and yeah, I'm hoping to speak to more people. Like hopefully as time goes on, and I'm trying to even get Helen Anderson, who was like a really big friend of John's. And
yeah.
But I'm sort of working my way up there because me and Helen have spoken a lot, but
wow. Cool.
I'm a little anxious, as she might say no, which is totally fine, but I'd love.
It's going to happen, unfortunately. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody that will say no, and it'll hurt your feelings for a couple minutes, and then you'll just move on.
I know. So hopefully, maybe if all goes right, I'll have her on the show because I would love to hear like.
That would be a great score.
Oh yeah, because I her and John were, besides Cynthia, her being friends, her and John were just close as could be, and we're wonderful friends.
And we're getting to the point now. These people are getting up there, and there any chance that of anything they can share with us is they're either going to share it or we're not going to know about it because it becomes fact, or once they're gone, it becomes myth. So these,
Totally. Yeah. So you got to get it out there now before anything happens. Yeah.
Any chance that you can get these people to talk, it would be great. So good luck.
I know. Hopefully we'll see. We will see. But yes.
That's awesome. So what we'll do is we'll put the links to all of your stuff, when we post this show. But Natalia, it was wonderful having you here for part one. You're great. I'm really looking forward to part two because this was a really great conversation. And Andy, anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, it could be maybe even a three-parter. We'll see. Because Linda could just be part two, and then Heather might even just be a part three.
Oh God, yeah, that could be like part 7 at that point because there's.
Oh my God. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a blast and a refreshing episode to record. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, you guys. Honestly, it's been so much fun. Thank you.
You got it. Do you have an email that you want to, or do you want people to get in touch with you or anything like that? On Twitter or anything like that, or?
I mean, I have. I'm gonna keep all my stuff private just because privacy.
That's fine.
But if anyone wants to shoot me an email, it's nataliam2798@gmail.com. I'm always there, so just hit me a message if anyone wants to know any info on Beetle Girls. I am here. I am your source.
Excellent. So thank you once again. You can find Two Legs everywhere, obviously, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Two Legs Podcast. You can like our pages there. Check out our YouTube channel, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. We're inching ever so closely to 600 subscribers. So thank you for that. Yeah, and the end of our Ranking the Tracks series is coming to a close here real soon. I think right now we've got a tentative date of the 17th to record our last episode of that with some family members. We're going to have my old co-host David Gargolino on, our art director Ethan Alexanian, and our musical director Dylan Seavey. It's just going to be the 5 of us, kind of like a little bit of a family reunion type thing, and we're going to rank the tracks of McCartney 3. I'm really looking forward to that. That should be a lot of fun. And email us at twolegspodcast@gmail.com. There's always the website twolegspodcast.com, right?
That's it.
Yep, that's it. And man, a lot of ways to get us. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podbean, this one, that one, and anywhere that the podcasts are. And you got us there, Andy. So thank you.
No problem. Google is your friend.
Yeah, there you go. So everybody out there, thank you again for watching. We'll be back with Natalia in a couple months for part 2. Really looking forward to it. So as always, everybody out there, have a great day and a beautiful night. Take care.
Bye.
by Tom Hunyadi and Andy Nichols, with musical contributions by Dylan